Tasmania's Table Cape protrudes into Bass Strait in the most spectacular way. Its ancient volcanic soils nourish 100 varieties of tulips.
There's all sorts of forms. I mean, the classic ones like the six-petalled, single tulip, and they're still ever popular. But then you can get doubles, which are essentially, they're not really 12 petals. Some can be, 36 or 12 petals. They're pretty amazing.
The Table Cape Lighthouse sits in the distance, just beyond the tulip fields, on the edge of this larval rock formation that makes the ground so fertile.
Northwest Tasmania has some pretty unique soil. There was about 13 volcanic extrusions across the northwest coast about 13 million years ago. And we've got, some beautiful, rich volcanic soil.
This really fertile soil and mild climate has been nourishing blooms like these for more than 40 years.
We produce about 7 hectares of tulips. We've actually cut back to about 4 hectares of lilies. We produce 6 or 7 hectares of Dutch iris. We produce a hectare of of hyacinths. And we're producing just a tiny smattering of alliums and daffodils.
The explosion of tulip colour in springtime is an annual, much-anticipated crop for the nearby northwest Tasmanian community of Wynyard. The blooms have been attracting curious visitors ever since they were first sown. And as they've been planted and harvested, a community springtime festival has also grown around the gorgeous plants.
When Dad first started, he had to decide whether he was going to build bigger fences or let people in. And so we decided to let people in and charge them a fee to come along. And it's sort of grown and grown. In the last few years, it's got quite big. And we had about 2,500 people through yesterday. It's our biggest day for the Blooming Tulip Festival. And that's just huge.
With their tall frames and pale blue eyes, the Roberts-Thompson family could be mistaken for having the same Dutch heritage as the flowers they grow. But their forebears hail from Scotland, and their expertise was in more traditional crops and Dorset pole sheep.
In the late 70s, early 80s, when I came into the business, I was trying to decide what we should be doing in the year 2000. And I decided for a couple of reasons that stud sheep wasn't the right thing to do. And the idea for tulips actually came from my agricultural science professor, who was a plant pathologist. And he would come across viruses in tulips and he said, you should have a look at this. And the rest's history.
It was trial and error in the early days, but eventually the crop and the market grew. At one stage, when the Australian dollar was low, they even exported tulips to Holland during the European off-season. Now the Table Cape Tulip Farm focuses on the local market. It's become one of Australia's biggest tulip bulb producers.
We are wholesaling and retailing our bulbs. In the wholesale market, they can end up anywhere, nurseries, some of the bigger chain outlet stores. Increasingly, we're selling more bulbs ourselves through our retail lines, and that's really, really good.
When the explosion of colour dies back, the bulbs can be harvested. They're dried before being packed for market. It's a hands-on, labour-intensive business.
Tulips in general require a fair bit of labour, so we've got about 10 people working for us pretty much all year round. And then during tulip grading, they can get up, and harvest and grading, that can get up to about 25 people.
And they're not just doing tulips. As the tulips are harvested, a line of iris bulbs are being graded, sorted and packed. Every day, a mix of bulbs are being sent to customers around the country. In between this harvesting, sorting and packing, work is also quietly being done on the paddocks. The family farm is undergoing a slow handover.
I'm really trying not to lead the charge now. I mean, it's really important that you leave your kids a bit of room to move.
The fourth generation of the Roberts-Thompson family is back on the land and exploring new ideas.
The farm, it's so diverse. That's what I really enjoy about the work here. Although it might be hard to change your mindset around from working with tourists to going out to, get ground ready for the next day or whatever it might be. That is really quite rewarding, to be a bit of a jack of all trades.
Behind the success of this explosion of colour is a real commitment to soil health and soil biology. The family's been experimenting with things like no tillage and cover crops, and so far the results have been really promising.
There's been a transition. My father's was probably the last generation was still trying to conquer nature. He was probably the last generation of that. I'm sort of something of an interim generation. And David's generation is trying to save the planet.
The seed mix is from a soil health recipe Dave Roberts-Thompson found on the net. He's come across a wealth of information and academic papers which he's using to guide soil improvements on the farm. The seeds will go into paddocks left bare after a tulip bulb harvest.
We're trying to have a really diverse mix that supports lots of different microbiology and also has a really different structure both above ground and below ground. So we got some tap-rooted plants, so sunflowers and the tillage radish, and that's really important for getting nutrients deep in the soil.
Rather than tilling the soil and leaving it fallow for a period, the cover crops are designed to nourish and protect. Although in its early days, the system appears to be doing its job, improving the soil quality and structure. For more than a century, the Roberts-Thompson family has farmed Table Cape. It's been a long journey from clearing the land, growing vegetables, grazing stock to growing tulips. But by changing how they care for the soil on this ancient volcanic larval flow jutting into Bass Strait, the family hopes to preserve the farm for generations to come.